Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen.
Today's big question is, what band or artist would you like to see featured in a new episode of VH1's Behind the Music, if that show was still being aired today? This was a tough one for me. My original thought was LAIBACH, of course.
Of course.
And I think that would be a pretty good episode. But then when I started to think about how that the VH1's Behind the Music worked, I wasn't sure that LAIBACH would actually do it. Although I think I still would like to see it. There's a lot about their history that needs to be told. There's already like 5 documentaries about them, one of which I don't think you can even watch in the United States yet, about the North Korean tour or shows, which I would like to see. But I decided then, after a little more thought, that the band I would like to see profiled is the Dead Kennedys. They had their share of controversy. They broke up and got back together without their singer. They were formed by East Bay Ray anyway. They had run-ins with the law because of they included a H.R. Geiger painting in their album Frankenkreis, which was called Penis Landscape, which really isn't that bad or obscene by today's standards, or even by 1985 standards, but still they were charged with selling obscene material in California to minors, because minors could buy that record in record stores. This might make interesting Behind the Music stuff, I don't know. But the loss, it resulted in a hung jury, and it didn't have a retrial. There were some disputes within the band. There's band members that left. They became very, very successful, at least in the punk scene, and very influential. They may have started hardcore music for all we know, and then they ended up hating what they started and broke up, and then got back together again. After another legal lawsuit against JELLO Biafra, because he owned Alternative Tentacles Records. I read that he started it with East Bay Ray, but I guess East Bay Ray didn't have anything to do with it after a while. But he was he didn't pay them the same amount of royalties as he was paying the other bands on the label, and they got banned. And he didn't tell them that. He knew it. And he lost that suit, and he also didn't have the rights to the name Dead Kennedys, so they could make the Dead Kennedys be a band without him, and they did, and they had several singers. So all that makes maybe for somebody could put it together with the VH1's Behind the Music narrator, and I think it would be pretty fun. So let's see it. I don't know. This is all fantasy, of course. It's not going to happen. So that's my the Dead Kennedys on Behind the Music. Yes,
Joe, you're saying that the Penis Landscape trial resulted in a hung jury.
It did.
That was a hard one.
I've seen that.
That was a hard one, yeah. I waited a long time for that one.
It just didn't measure up to the other cases.
It's a series of penises and vaginas, if you haven't.
Trial was over prematurely.
Prematurely.
I think one of them is wearing a condom too.
Oh, interesting. So that was the safe sex penis.
I think JELLO Biafra and Tipper Gore were on like Oprah or something.
Yeah, and they could use footage in that maybe. I watched that. I actually recorded that on cassette. I was fascinated with that. in the West Philly Dead Milkman house basement. Okay, Dan.
So the one that I chose, I Hear a New World, which is by Joe Meek and like the Blue Men or something from 1959. It's Joe Meek was the guy that wrote the song Telstar, which is like which we should include a link to him singing it. He didn't really have a good idea about singing on key, and then if you listen to this, it makes sense. He was kind of like a really brilliant songwriter for not really knowing how to play music. So he would get people to kind of work tunes out for him. They would like sing them, and they would play it like, you know, better than it sounded when he was singing it. But this I Hear a New World is a lot of experimental stuff with multi-track recording. 1959, it was so kind of new, and he was doing these weird like loops and stuff, and reverb, a lot of just weird sounds, and it makes you feel it when you're listening to it, like if you kind of close your eyes and listen to it, not if you're driving, but it kind of takes you to this other like world where these like, you know, creatures, and all the names of the songs are like March of the Globbits, and it's really strange. I have no idea like what was going on and who was involved in this, and I would love to know. If I don't know, I've never actually, I don't remember watching any VH1 Behind Music, but I get that it's like they have like the, you know, talking head interviews with, you know, people's heads, not the band, but, and then clips of stuff, and then maybe some engineers talking, but do they do it with like old, like do they find like old footage and do old ones, or does it have to have new?
It's usually like a band like bio. If I might interject, I was going to mention this during my segment, but here's a good place for it. This standard show format, at least, is kind of like one, the scrappy band beginnings, they're striving for success, you know. Two, they get a big break and they gain popularity, right? Three, tragedy strikes, drugs, alcohol, or death.
Kind of controversy.
And a controversy. Four, introspection. Five, the band members change, you know, they get two new people. And six, like they have a big comeback and like everybody's happy.
And wait, no, Dean, you're missing 7.
What's that?
They get cleaned up, they get back together, they get through all their problems, and they make a new album, and it's the worst album they've ever made. It is 99.999 times out of 100. It's an absolute piece of shit. It is absolute, and it always falls out. And like, and now they're in the studio. You know, their problems are behind them, and they're working on a new album. And then, you know, and this is always recorded before the album comes out. And go, yeah, that album sucked.
Yeah,
I
so
thought
that's
I thought it
kind of
said
like
album
a standard format for the
Yeah,
show.
they're interview like headshots of people in the band talking about it afterwards. You know.
Yeah, but it's
Well,
it said album or artist, right? So, and I was thinking, I was confusing it with classic albums, which I have seen. And I thought it was a similar thing, like where it was like one, they do a little bit of bio, but then they also focus on the
Classic albums is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I get tired of that formula that you just explained. Like it's
I watched the AC/DC one the other night just to refresh my memory.
If this was Behind the Music right now, I'd be talking about how I sold Joe's house for cocaine. That's just the way it works, folks.
And you guys picked me up off the street. We had to give this guy something to do.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dan. Continue.
No, I'm that was it.
Okay. Well, I think a Joe Meek story. I think isn't there a decent book or two out about him?
I don't know. I've tried to look for stuff, but I didn't look that hard. I kind of like the mystery of it. I know that he went. I know that he killed his landlady and then himself.
Yeah. Okay.
Fun side story. I once took an apartment, and when I went in there after cleaning up, I discovered that somebody had actually carved Joe Meeks into the floor. And I think, I should move. For real, yeah. And that person who lived there before disappeared, left furniture behind and everything, according to the landlady.
They heard a new world.
All right. So I did mention what I thought was the sort of standard format, and I think everybody kind of is in agreement. Rodney's also Step 7, the terrible comeback album, is pretty accurate. The band that I would like to see is the B-52s, because they have got a story that kind of fits this mold in a way. They sort of had some local success. They were like a fun party band that everybody liked, and they recorded a couple of singles and they started touring. And I think the big band in town in Athens, Georgia, REM, really liked them. And so they went to New York and they had some big shows there and everybody liked them. In fact, I think even John Lennon was a big fan of the band. I think he really liked the song Rock Lobster, which is very interesting. And so they got big, they got popular, they got successful. And they released, I guess, 1 or 2 albums. They even went down to like the Bahamas to record their first 2 albums. And then they were working on their 3rd record, I believe, in the mid-'80s. And their guitar player, Ricky Wilson, was sick, and he didn't tell anybody, or he didn't want anybody to worry about him, but he was sick with AIDS and he eventually died, I think, after they had finished recording that record. So that kind of devastated the band. They didn't even tour on that record. His younger sister, Cindy, is one of the singers in the band, and she eventually decided to bow out of the band. She took a break from the band. And in the meantime, the drummer, Keith Strickland, became the guitar player, and he actually wrote lots of the music. He and actually the drummer and Ricky, Keith and Ricky, did pretty much write all the music for the band. They started playing again, and they had a little comeback. They had new members join the band. Keith decided that he didn't want to play drums anymore, so they recorded an album where they used a lot of drum machines, which is, Ronnie mentioned Legal Tender the other week on the show. That's one of the album, or one of the songs. Actually, while they were touring with without Cindy, they actually recruited JULEE Cruz, from you may know from Twin Peaks, to play the part of Cindy in the band, singing her parts and so forth. Then Cindy decides to rejoin, and then Keith Strickland doesn't want to tour anymore, but he still wants to be in the band. And then we come to present day, when they're about to start, or I think it's starting this month or into the fall. They're on their farewell tour. They're playing about a dozen or so shows, and this supposedly is their farewell tour. And we won't get behind the music, but we might get something that's sort of like it, because apparently Fred Armisen is producing a movie about the band that's supposed to come out next year sometime. So we'll provide links to a story where I heard about that. But so yeah, the B-52s, I think, would fit the mold for the standard behind the music kind of structure.
All right, so mine, and this is going to seem kind of obvious. A little nod there to last week's comment section. This is going to seem kind of obvious, but my first instinct was to go with BLAGUE. I wanted to go with BLAGUE because A, the music is freaking awesome, both on record and live. B, BLAGUE is America's leather band. America loves BLAGUE. Also, the Rawls grew up, believe it or not, listening to the Dead Milkmen, which makes me feel great. And I also thought maybe if this was some sort of behind the music and it was on TV, that a Baptist minister would accidentally see it and have a heart attack and die there on the floor. And so I'd be like, oh no, those pesky homosexuals have killed another Baptist minister. So I thought that was what I was going to go with. And I thought, wait a minute, BLAGUE is playing Terminus this Saturday night. Now that would be last Saturday night for the rest of the world. So if you're watching this on Saturday, it was a week before. And then I thought, why not A, behind the music about the Terminus Festival? And I thought this could be something that helps break the mold. Because whenever you see behind the music about a festival, it's always a shit show of a festival. It's always like Woodstock 99 or Altamont or the Fire Festival or Lollapalooza 2022. Yeah, I know. Do you guys see the lineup for Lollapalooza 2022?
No.
So it's so bland that it makes the Pitchfork Music Festival look like the gathering of the Juggalos. It's just not interesting. So Calgary's Terminus Festival has been going on for 10 years without any major hiccups, but you could do behind the music just on this year's festival. What happened this year was Pixel Grip and Kite both had the airlines lose their equipment. And then everybody pitched in to loan them equipment. So you can hear the behind the music narrator going, but then everybody pitched in to loan equipment. And also there was kind of tragedy this year. The IMX set was supposedly a train wreck. And we all know I love IMX, but Chris, please don't do that again. So I thought then they could go like, everything was going great. And then IMX took the stage. In case you didn't hear, at one point his modular synth fell over. But it hurts to say that. So a quick run through of this year's lineup, and I'm telling you, be perfect for behind the music. This year's lineup was the aforementioned PLACK, BLAGUE, who are amazing, Pixel Grip and Kite, as well as Hex, whose guitarist Sarah will never be put down by the Germans. So then the behind the music voice go, and then the Germans fell in love with Sarah from Hex. Randolph and Mortimer, Kanga actors, Choke Chain, Wingtips, a bunch of bands, really great bands that you people watching the show have never heard of. Oh, and there was also a little dog named Checkers. So the
upbeat record.
But I thought if you made a behind the music about this, about like Terminus Fest, then like kids who are like weirdos, outcasts, misfits might stumble upon it, and they might think, hey, somebody's making music for me. And that was important for me when I was young, and I would stumble upon a really weird band because I was like, an outcast. I got beat up every day at school, and I would say, hey, somebody is out there who's also weird. And I think if you're getting bullied at school, this music might be able to help you. 8 hours of the Beatles is not going to help anybody who's bullied at school. And that's because the Beatles were themselves bullies. The Beatles used to invite orphans over for a free concert, leave them outside freezing in the cold, then go up to the roof and get buckets of cold, stale urine and dump them on the orphans. It's called beetling, really. And it's in the dictionary. Look it up. Yeah. So I'm just saying that just once, I would like to turn on TV and see some of the music that I like in like a major show. And no offense to anyone. I don't want to offend anybody, but if you like Japanese breakfast and Jeff Tweedy, the world will beat a path to your door. They'll be like, here, have some albums, have some documentaries. Here are trading cards. And good for you people. I wish that the music I liked was out there and accessible. I would love to turn on the radio and hear Ghost Twin, who, by the way, played at this year's Terminus Festival. It seems like the music industry really, really wants you to know about Run the Jewels, but they don't want you to know about Louisa. And Louisa is punk as fuck. Louisa, if you're watching this, put somewhere, please, and make me happy. You said, Louisa is punk as fuck, Rodney Anonymous. I want to know about Louisa, and I want kids who are weirdos, outcasts, misfits. I want them to know about Louisa. You could make this behind the music, and it could be like a decline of Western civilization. Remember how people saw that and it got them into punk music? That in that episode of Quincy? Probably more of that episode of Quincy than the decline, but still, it got weird kids into weird music. And there's a chance that normal people might see a documentary about Terminus Fest and start checking out the bands, and it would expand their musical universe, which is something we really need, because right now, if you check the comment section for this show, you'd think there are 4 bands in existence and 3 of them are the Meat Puppets. So all I'm saying is we'll probably never get the behind the music about Terminus Festival. I'll probably, for 10 years I've wanted to go, I'll probably never get to go. Another reason I wanted this, so I could see something about it. But if you folks who are watching this, just go back and start looking at the bands that played and check some of them out. I think you'll find some bands that'll just make you feel better. And I'll put a whole bunch of links in the comments section. Just go through, have some fun. Some of them you'll like, some of them you won't. I'm willing to bet you people are going to love actors. You might be a little iffy on Pixel Grip, but it's new music. And that's something that we really, don't get to talk about as much. So thanks for letting me talk about it.
I like to recommend a podcast that I'm almost certain was already recommended a couple years ago on this very program, but I'm recommending it again. I didn't recommend it the first time. It's called No Dogs in Space. You didn't recommend that.
No, I didn't recommend that. No.
Did anybody recommend that one? No. Okay, then I'm hallucinating, or
You're doing
I must have been
impression
in
for some other band, Joe.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a podcast. Husband and wife team do deep dives into band histories, and they talk about them. They make the stories up way longer than they need to be with incidental conversation about you learn a little about their own lives too. But yeah, I think they started it in 2020. I'm not sure, but it's going on for a few years now. The whole first season was punk rock, and now that they've moved on to new other things.
Say, Joe, isn't that Marcus Parks from Last Podcast on the Left, one of my favorite podcasts?
I think so.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I like Marcus on Last Podcast on the Left.
Okay.
I would like to recommend, if you have kids, send them to a camp. 1 week. And if you don't have kids, maybe you should become a camp counselor. But get your background checks.
Yeah. Jared from Subway. No.
Well, I don't know. Next week, maybe I'll be recommending a different thing, because like I was telling you guys, the kids, they don't have their phones or any way to communicate with us. So
Yay.
We're pretty sure they're okay. Actually, we're pretty sure they're having a great time.
Yeah, the Ouija board says they're doing just fine.
I would like to recommend some new music by a local Philadelphia band called Timecube Unlimited. And they have a new album out called Mirrorcage. And I am a bit biased because this is my son Victor's band. It's a new album. We'll provide a link. You can listen to it on all of the streaming services and blah 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 that's out there these days for all the music. It's kind of trippy and psychedelic and weird, and it's very entertaining. So I hope you check it out.
Okay. And I would like to take a minute to say goodbye to my friend Dave Heckmen. Dave was the president of Metropolis Records, which brought a lot of music and a lot of music bands that my friends are in. It just brought that out to the world. He used to own Digital Underground, which was a record store that kind of changed my life. I'm going to miss seeing him at shows. I would go to shows. I just talked about, I don't have a lot of people who are into the same music I'm into, and finding people my own age who was fantastic. And I would go to these shows, and Dave was a true Philadelphian, but he was a Philadelphian by way of the UK. So he's a Philadelphian with a British accent. And he would, he always says, what are you up to? And I'm like, I'm up to remixing your bands. It's great. We meet each other back and forth, but he would ask you what you liked, what you're listening to. And sometimes he'd say, well, I'm thinking about signing so-and-so. What do you think of them? Which is absolutely amazing. We can think of some interviews with him, but really a sweet guy, really funny, sarcastically funny, and I'm going to miss him. I'm going to be, on the next show I go to, I'm going to be looking around for him, and I'm not going to see him, and it's going to kind of bum me because I really liked it. Okay, we'll move on to something happier. I'm going to recommend a documentary which kind of fits into tonight's theme. The documentary is called This is Gore, and you can watch it on Shudder, and it is the behind the music of Gore. It is absolutely, it asks the question, what happens when you have an art project and you begin to say, all right, are we an art project? Are we a band? Should we be working on the music, the art? And it just follows the whole trajectory of Gore. It's really good. They don't include, they have the Gore on the Joan Rivers show, but they don't include my favorite part, which is like, what if somebody listens to your music and they want to hurt somebody? And Otis went, that person could become a policeman. But yeah, it's when you watch it, you'll remember why you love Gore. And I've seen Gore a bunch of times, and it really warms your heart. So it's really, really good. And then a quick plug, if I may. This Saturday, we can't call it Yak Fest because apparently there's a kayak festival with a very similar name. And they're not like they were going to sue, but people thought it was a kayak festival. They're like, well, why are we bringing our kayaks to the club? No, this is the actual music festival. It's the Noid Hometown Ghosts, somebody called Heinrich, some sort of German synthesist and acoustic artist. It's just going to be a weird show, totally weird, sort of odd Philadelphia eclectic thing taking place at the Khyber this Saturday night. So I'm looking forward to going there and getting hammered and just seeing the silliness. So that's what I've got.
Cool.
Thank you.
Well,
Well, let's go down to the docks now and fight sailors. That's what we do after the show, people. Oh my God.
I don't
That's
need to
something
see
sell in the back of the store. They said that wouldn't fall out.